Hi crafty folks, Amy here, and I have a rainbow HIYA card to share with you with some 3D embossing. I have this Arches 3D embossing folder, and here's a photo of the finished card to show you the direction that we're headed. So basically I got this new die set, actually as a freebie if you can believe it, from a recent scrapbook.com order. If it's still available, I'll link it in the video description box below with all the other items. But basically I'm going to use that and this embossing folder to create a really unique HIYA card. So these dies have really cool little design elements and little diamond designs on them. So I'm basically going to just take the 4 letters HIYA, and to keep them straight and to be able to adhere them to the card panel, I'm using a piece of mint tape. Now this is my favorite mint tape. It's low tack. I also get this from scrapbook.com, but I'm using just the very bottom to line it up and make sure that it's nice and straight. So I'm going to work through these 4 letters, and then I'm going to figure out where I want to cut it out of the panel. Now I'm not working directly on a card base like I often do because I am going to be embossing this panel. So I'm just going to line this up where I think I want it, and then I'm just going to close this just to make sure that it works with the design elements on the embossing. So that's generally the area that I want to go. So I'm going to run this through off screen through my die cutting machine and pull out these little pieces and then just kind of set them aside in this little tray so I don't lose them while I do the other steps. So I'm just going to use my pokey tool to poke out the little bits when I get to that point, but this tape is really stuck on there for some reason, so I'm just going to pull that off my dies. Yeah, this is my pokey tool from my friend Judy. I absolutely love it. So I'm going to poke these out and set this aside. I want to also make sure I save the little inner portion of the A because I want to be able to complete that in the design. So I spritzed it with some water just to help the fibers of the paper really take to the dramatic 3D embossing, and then I line this up, mindful to keep it straight in my embossing folder, and then run it through off screen through my die cutting machine. And I do use a Spellbinders Platinum 6, so use whatever sandwich works for your die cutting machine. Again, here I'm being a little fiddly just to make sure the design is exactly where I want it, and then this portion is ready to go. So I'm gonna line these back up in here after I poke out the little diamonds from the center. Such a cool little design element. I still can't believe these were a freebie. But this is probably the fiddliest bit here, is just kind of poking out these little tiny bits of the letters. And then at this point I don't really have a plan. I'm just going to kind of play it by ear and figure out what I want to do. So here I have scraps. I have a folder of adhesive back foam scraps. So I'm just going to pick 4 colors that I feel like they work pretty well together, and then I'm going to cut out with the same HIYA dies. I'm going to cut out all different colored letters. Now these already have adhesive on the back, so I won't have to apply any further adhesive because they'll kind of nestle into the opening like a little sticker. So I'm just going to use some mint tape to hold these down into place, and then I'll run these through again through my die cutting machine. Now bear in mind, the pressure will kind of squish these down a little bit, so it's not uncommon to have a little bit overlap, have the foam be a little bit wider than the die cut, which I don't mind at all. In fact, I kind of deliberately offset this because I want these colors to show, because it's an otherwise pretty simple design and I have a lot of white space. So here I'm pulling them out, and some of them I'm having to kind of put the backer back on because they're wanting to come off of the foam bits. So again, a little fiddly, but it was worth it in the end. So I'm using my pokey tool again just to pull this out. Trying to remember, one of them got really flat. It may have been this Y. It was hardly even as thick as paper at this point, so I was wondering if I was going to have to cut it out again, but it ended up working out okay. Now I'm just going to use some liquid glue and attach the white die cut word letters on top of the colored foam background pieces. But again, like I said, I'm going to offset it a little bit because I want those colors to show, so it looks almost like a drop shadow. So just to apply some pressure, I'm going to put them under my big hunk in acrylic block here and let those sit. Now for the next step, I picked out 4 Copic colors that kind of match the colors of the foam. So use whatever markers you have, and I'm just carefully kind of coloring in the recesses on this embossing folder. So this is a fun way to use your embossing folders, maybe a little different than you thought, is just to kind of color with your markers. Now you may notice I pulled the other side off, the other cap off. That was because it looked like maybe the ink was pooling on the brush end, and it looked like it may have dropped some ink when I didn't want it to. So the way to counteract that is to open the other side of your Copic marker. So if you have those and you have the sketch markers and it looks really juicy, like it's going to drip on you, then quick open the other cap, and then that will help kind of balance the ink out, and then it won't kind of drop down on you. So at this point I decided I wanted to go in the ridge in between the colors, and then also up onto kind of the embossed raised portion as well. So it made the colored strips a little bit thicker. This isn't perfect. You'll see in the photo, it's not super straight edges. So if you are a perfectionist, then this might not be the best technique for you, but I thought it was fun and a different way to kind of get my Copics out and have a play, because I don't use them as much as I should. So I'm just carefully working through these 4 colors, and then that's going to be it for the color. I'm not going to color in the other arches. I just want to do that one single with the 4 colors, and then have the pop of the color behind the die cuts as well. So again, this is a little bit fiddly, but I'm just kind of taking my time. You're watching this in, I don't know if I have this sped up. Maybe I have it sped up a little bit, so I'm not quite this fast, but I was moving very slowly as to not kind of go outside of the lines, because I really wanted to make sure I made it as neat as possible. So now I'm finishing up with that blue color, coming up right next to the teal, and I really love these 4 colors together. I think it's kind of a fun, unconventional rainbow. So use whatever your favorite colors are, whatever foam colors you have in your stash, and then match your markers to it. So it's a really fun, different way to kind of stretch your crafty supplies. So here I'm nearly done with this bit, and then I can start assembling the pieces to finish the cards. So here I'm just being a little bit fussy, being a little precious with this, but I want to make it as neat as I can. So here I'm just going to use some tape runner and attach this to my card base. I'm coming in also in between the letters, because I don't want the little bits like with the Y to pop up or anything like that. Now this is A2 size US, so 4¼ inches by 5½. I'm just going to place that down, press it down directly on the card, and then I can basically remove the backer and then just nestle these in right into the openings. So I was stressing about the A, because I think I did lose the inner portion. So you can see off to the right, I did kind of die cut the A again, but then I realized it didn't even really matter, because it was all white on white. So I was worrying over nothing. And here I'm just going to finish up the card with a little bit of blingage. I have some iridescent white sequins in different sizes. I'm going to lay those in a smattering around the card with some liquid glue and my jewel picker tool, just to add a little bit more visual interest to an otherwise very clean and simple card with lots of white space. So think about your embossing folders and ways that you can kind of tie it in with your markers, maybe in an unconventional way, and really stretch those supplies. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.